Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. It is without a doubt one of medicine's most devastating mysteries. It takes a really profound toll on patients, on their families, and on society as a whole. And for decades, a truly effective treatment has remained just out of reach. But recently, well, researchers have turned their attention toward a highly advanced biological approach: umbilical cord stem cells. So in today's Explainer, we're going to look closely at the science, the hard data, and really the hope that's driving this fascinating area of regenerative medicine.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with part 1, the nature of ALS. Then we'll cover 2, treatment limitations, 3, stem cell mechanisms, 4, safety and clinical trials, and finally, 5, the future of medicine.
Okay, let's dive straight into part 1, the harsh reality of what ALS actually is. So globally, the incidence rate of ALS ranges from about 1 to 4 cases per 100,000 people. Now, that number might sound pretty small at first glance, right? But the impact is absolutely catastrophic. ALS is a fatal disease, and it's characterized by this progressive degeneration of motor neurons in your brain and your spinal cord. You can kind of think of these motor neurons as the electrical wiring that connects your brain's commands to your muscles. When that wiring breaks down, the muscles are totally cut off. And the progression, it's ruthless. It typically starts with just some muscle weakness in the legs or arms, then it advances into muscle atrophy, leading to full paralysis, and ultimately patients pass away primarily due to respiratory failure, because the muscles required for breathing simply just stop working.
And what makes ALS so incredibly devastating is the ticking clock. Once those symptoms begin, the timeline is dramatic and frankly heartbreaking. Look at this. About 50% of all patients succumb to the disease within just 30 months of their first symptoms. Another 30% pass away between 30 months and 5 years. Only about 20% of patients even survive past that 5-year mark, and a mere 10% make it over a decade. It's literally a race against time from the exact moment of diagnosis, which creates this massive, immense urgency for the medical community to step up and find an intervention that actually works. Moving right along to Section 2. Treatment limitations, and why we're currently stuck in a deadlock. The core issue with treating ALS is that there isn't just one single root cause. There are actually multiple villains attacking the nervous system all at the exact same time. Research has pinpointed several distinct pathogenic factors here. First, there's glutamate excitotoxicity, which essentially means it overstimulates the nerve cells until they literally die. Then there's dysfunction in the glial cells, which are the cells actually supposed to be supporting and protecting your neurons. We also see myelin disorders, which degrade the protective coating around your nerves, plus severe, harmful immune and inflammatory responses. So because there are so many simultaneous destructive mechanisms at play, trying to develop a single drug that targets just one of these pathways, well, it's like trying to put out a roaring house fire with a squirt gun. It's just incredibly difficult. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive gap between where we are right now and where we desperately need to be. Today, the current medical reality relies heavily on just 2 FDA-approved drugs for ALS, riluzole and edaravone. Now, while they definitely represent important scientific milestones, they really only offer very modest improvements in survival and disease progression. They don't halt it, and they certainly don't reverse the disease. But on the flip side of that spectrum, we have stem cell potential. Because stem cells are living, dynamic entities, they offer multi-targeted regenerative properties. They have the potential to actually maintain and nourish sick motor neurons, addressing multiple disease pathways all at once, rather than just trying to block a single chemical process. It's a total game changer. Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, how these stem cells actually fight back. Mesenchymal stem cells, or MSCs, don't just do one thing. They act more like a master key that can unlock and fix multiple problems simultaneously. First up, they release neurotrophic factors. Think of these like a biological fertilizer that helps neurons survive and grow. Second, they modulate the immune system, calming down the body's overactive, damaging responses. Third, they actively reduce neuroinflammation in the brain and spinal cord. Fourth, and this is super cool, they exert anti-apoptotic activity. Now, that's just a fancy scientific way of saying they stop sick cells from hitting their own programmed self-destruct button. And fifth, they contribute to the actual repair and regeneration of tissue. They're literally fighting back on every single front where ALS attacks. Now here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. It's this unique capability known as homing. You can think of homing as a built-in biological GPS system. When you introduce these MSCs into the body, they don't just wander around aimlessly. No, they actively sense chemical distress signals and migrate directly to the sites of tissue injury, specifically those damaged motor neurons. Once they arrive at the exact location where they are needed most, they set up shop and begin secreting those bioactive factors for immune regulation and nutritional support. It is a naturally targeted delivery system, and it is amazing.
All right, let's look at the hard clinical evidence in Section 4, Safety and Clinical Trials.
The global medical community is aggressively testing this right now, which gives us a great snapshot of the active clinical landscape. Earlier phase 1 and 2 clinical studies showed highly promising results in delaying the onset and slowing the progression of ALS by reducing neuroinflammation. And because of those early successes, we're now seeing larger phase 3 trials being conducted on a much broader global scale to rigorously verify how effective this really is. Meanwhile, you've got phase 1 and 2 trials in places like Spain and the US evaluating specific variations, like using autologous adipose or fat-derived MSCs. But the primary objective across all these early studies, meticulously tracking adverse effects to guarantee patient safety above all else.
So the crucial point you should take away from this is the safety profile. When looking specifically at the safety of umbilical cord stem cell infusions in ALS therapies, the data is highly encouraging. As documented in a targeted study, patients received appropriate dosages, and the conclusion was crystal clear. No significant adverse events occurred. The treatment was well tolerated, 0 severe complications. Establishing this foundational safety is a massive hurdle that's now cleared, which allows researchers to focus all their energy on optimizing the exact efficacy of the treatment. And that leads us to our final section, Part 5, the future of medicine and where we go from here. Because we aren't totally at the finish line yet. To truly unlock the power of stem cell therapy, medical technology needs to advance in a few key areas. First off, researchers have to lock in the absolute optimal cell type and the exact dosage. Second, we have to refine how we actually deliver them. Right now, trials are using a mix of intraspinal, intravenous, and intramuscular injections. To minimize risks and ensure that these cells reach the exact locations without messing up the surrounding delicate tissues, we urgently need vastly improved, high-resolution imaging techniques to guide these microscopic deliveries. And honestly, perhaps most importantly, we need earlier diagnosis protocols. By the time many patients are diagnosed today, massive neural damage has already happened. For stem cells to do their best protective work, they have to be introduced as early in the disease process as humanly possible. Which really leaves us with this final, profound question. If stem cells are indeed the ultimate multi-tool to fight this complex disease, how fast can our medical technology evolve to deliver them perfectly before time runs out for current patients? It's a high-stakes race, right? A race between technological innovation on one side and disease progression on the other. The progress we've seen so far is incredible, but for the patients waiting, the finish line just cannot come fast enough. It's a fascinating medical frontier, so keep an eye on it, stay curious, and as always, keep learning.